The classical premise that the universe is a pre-existing container reaches its mathematical limit when we try to account for the observer. When you examine the deepest layers of physics and neuroscience, that rigid geometric box dissolves. We call this default model the Cartesian Theater. It assumes that reality is a fully formed backdrop existing prior to any observation, a finished stage where cells, stars, and human minds are simply placed. This creates a structural disconnect. If the physical stage is a closed, finished system, then biology and subjectivity become anomalies, added to a mechanical world after the fact. Resolving this requires a shift in how we sequence reality. We have to treat existence as something other than the starting premise. The container universe functions as a theoretical roadblock. Moving past it involves rebuilding our model of reality based on the mechanics of determination. Selective Reality Theory, or SRT, defines existence as the stabilized output of a continuous process of selection. This framework preserves the predictive math of modern physics while reorganizing our fundamental ontology, redefining what it means for a state to be real. We begin with a raw field of open possibilities. Through selection, that unformed potential snaps into a specific, sharply defined point. This requires active maintenance, a continuous expenditure of friction holding the surrounding potentiality at bay, preventing dissolution. Reconstructing reality from scratch means starting with this sheer act of determination and tracing its consequences. Determination is the transition from undetermined potential to a specific selected state. When a node flashes and pulls the fog into a shape, uncertainty is reduced. By information theory, this transition inherently produces information. This newly created information warps the surrounding landscape, altering the condition space for every other potential selection. Because the possibility landscape shifted, the selection is irreversible. The original environment no longer exists. Attempting to undo an action applies a new determination to this altered landscape, creating a new forward branch rather than rewinding. Since every act of determination changes the conditions for the next, the structural engine of reality moves in one direction. This structural irreversibility yields the phenomenon of time. The arrow of time measures these accumulated, irreversible selections. It is the product of the process, rather than the container for it. Under continuous selection pressure, the system relies on convergence. Determinations that successfully maintain order are repeated. When information undergoes rapid repetition, it hardens. Over massive scales, these patterns lock into a lattice we perceive as physical laws and solid matter. Existence is a stable structure of converged selections. The immovable physical world is a dynamic equilibrium, a cross-section of constant, repeated selection. SRT organizes this through a triadic ontology, where reality operates in three interconnected states of process. The bottom tier is L0, the latent domain containing uncollapsed potential. The middle tier, L1, is the manifest domain, an active slice pulling potential into current reality. The top tier, L2, is the stable domain, crystallized historical selections providing constraints. These three states are phases of a single, continuous grammar of determination. All selection occurs from a finite position. A rendering node projects a cone of vision that is truncated by its own structural limits. Because position is finite, occlusion is a structural necessity. Local horizons and blind spots are the prerequisites for making any selection at all. If every observer is strictly bound to a local perspective, we must explain the source of shared reality. Objectivity is the convergence of distinct positions, surviving the overlap of finite operators and filtering out local errors. Shared reality is the hardening of the world produced by overlapping finite perspectives. If existence is structural determination, we have to locate subjectivity and value within this mechanical process. Subjectivity is not an external property, it is a specific mode of selection. We define concern as a local system mapping the order conditions of its neighbors into its own choices, internalizing the stability of the surrounding system. As complexity increases, a system perceives the order gap, the tension between its current structural state and a larger, unfulfilled generative order in the latent field. Higher consciousness emerges as the modulation of selections by this perceived tension. When a subject acts to bridge this order gap, its behavior transitions from mechanical repetition to generative choice. We have rebuilt reality from a single act of determination, through the emergence of time and matter, up to the behavior of conscious systems. This triadic model describes the mechanics of reality while respecting the boundaries of empirical science. Data weaves between the latent, manifest, and stable domains through the work of finite operators. Time, objectivity, and physics are integrated phases of a single structural engine. Existence is the result of the irreversible act of selection.